What is up, and welcome to 3 in the Key. I'm your host, Ben Allen. We are down to our last 2 episodes of the semester. Today, we'll get you up to date on the latest and greatest sports action, and Simon Kaufman of the Michigan Daily will be with us again to talk about the Mitch McGary situation and Adam Silver's stance against Donald Sterling. But before all that, let's get you up to date on what you missed.
Effective immediately, I am banning Mr. Sterling for life.
Adam Silver brought the hammer down yesterday on Donald Sterling. After Sterling's few racist remarks, he has been banned from the NBA. He will also, barring a few cop-outs, will be the first NBA owner ever forced to sell his team. This was the first major move since Silver has made since being the NBA commissioner as of February 1st. It was a blatant statement to the rest of the world that the NBA does not take racism lightly and will not be tolerated at all. It is unclear what legal action Sterling may or may not take in return. The list of those who are interested in the potentially soon-to-be available franchise that is the Clippers is beginning to grow. You probably never thought I would put this Oprah on the over-the-shoulder, but yes, Oprah is now one of those interested in the team. She would be teaming with Larry Ellison and David Geffen. Geffen told ESPN that Oprah feels she thinks it would be a great thing for an important black American to own another franchise. Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather are a few of the others who have voiced an interest in owning a team. Jameis Winston is back in the news again, and it has nothing to do with pitching in baseball, and it has nothing to do with being a Heisman-winning quarterback. Winston yesterday was issued a citation for stealing crab legs from a grocery store. Certainly not as serious as an alleged rape case, but he has been suspended indefinitely from the baseball team. There have been no reports why he needed the crab legs so badly. If you have not heard the name Jose Abreu, you should get familiar. The 27-year-old rookie for the White Sox has set the record for the most home runs, RBIs, and slugging percentage by a rookie by the end of the month of April. With 10 dingers and 32 ribbies and a slugging percentage over .620, he got to double-digit home runs faster than the entire Kansas City Royals team. The first baseman has had wonderful success so early in his career. The next step will be, can he get his batting average up? That's all for what you missed, but when we return, we'll have a conversation with Simon Kaufman. Stay tuned.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
Well, welcome back to 3 in the Key. Now joining me is Michigan Daily's basketball beat writer, Simon Kaufman. Simon, how you doing again, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on again, Ben.
It's good to see you. It's last time we were talking to you while you were out on, I think it was spring break out in Denver. How's it being in Michigan? You're done with finals now, right?
Just finished my last final this morning, so I'm on summer break officially now.
Summer break and the hair. I'm liking the haircut here too.
It's nice. Yeah.
It's very nice. All right, Simon, so the biggest story going around all of sports and maybe even the nation right now has got to be the Donald Sterling stuff with the Clippers. And there's been so much discussion, and we all at this point kind of know what he said, and we know what, the Commissioner Adam Silver has done. What was your opinion or take on what Adam Silver did? Because I think a lot of people were really surprised with how strong of a stance he took against Sterling.
Definitely, I think I would put myself in the group of people that were surprised by, I guess, the severity of the punishment. But I really commend Silver because this is a guy that's following a commissioner that's been there 2 decades, and this is really what he'll be remembered for his first actions as commissioner. This is going to, kind of set the legacy for how he's going to run the league. So I think he was put in a position where he had to come out and make a strong statement. I think he did exactly that.
What do you think this means for other cases going forward? Do you think that he's going to be known as that hard ass that pretty much just says, hey, I'm here, I'm in charge, I'm going to be basically, not going to the extreme on every level, but he's going to be hitting the hard points hard?
I don't know if it necessarily sets him up for this extreme ruler, kind of dictator position of a commissioner. I think it was pretty dependent on the situation. I think in this situation, given the circumstances, it called for a pretty severe response from the league. And I think that's what he did. I think each case he's going to have to look at on a case-by-case situation, and that he doesn't necessarily want to make a name for himself as always kind of coming down so hard.
Now, one thing you often see with a lot of league issues, and often it happens in the NFL first, but one person will say something and there's kind of like a ripple effect afterwards. Do you think that there's going to be any other people that are coming out and being like, hey, I've experienced racism, but I'm a part of like the Indiana Pacers organization? Do you think there will be anything like that forthcoming?
You know what? I think it'll be interesting to see. I think that, and you've heard before that it's the most diverse league out of all the leagues. I'm sure there's been issues before. I think this was an interesting case because the documentation was just so clear of it. It was, obviously behind closed doors, but the proof was just, so there that you couldn't really deny it. It'll be interesting to see going forward if people maybe are more inclined to report things in the future if they experience racism in the league.
I think the most mind-blowing thing to me is just the fact that this is now only getting press now. I mean, we've known about Donald Sterling being possibly a racist since 2009, and we know for even earlier reports. But hearing about the stuff that happened with Danny Manning and what happened, with the whole Elgin Baylor case, in which ultimately Sterling won that lawsuit, but he was fired over race and age, and it was kind of obvious, a man that was in his 70s, early 70s at that time, being fired over the color of his skin, and it's mind-blowing to me that it took this long for us to really realize, wow, the man who's been so unsuccessful as an owner is also a bigot,
Absolutely, and I wonder if maybe the Clippers weren't in the playoffs this year, if this story would be getting, so much of the attention that it would. I would hope that it would still be, given everything that's surrounding it, but it's amazing that once your team starts winning for good and for bad, that there's a lot of cameras around all of a sudden.
And this is totally a Clippers thing. This would only happen at the Clippers, a team that has been they've just been so hard-struck with bad things happening to them. They've been so unsuccessful for so many years. They've had injuries that have caused them to lose. And now this happens in the playoffs, and it's not helping them against Golden State, who's coming out, and Steph Curry is leading the way and just completely shooting the lights out.
I guess it is Murphy's Law in that sense. And, the timing couldn't be any worse in terms of it being right during the postseason in the first series. But I think, obviously this affects the league as a whole. But if you're a player on the Clippers, this is something that you want to put behind you. I think some of the best owners in sports, I think you don't hear about them a lot. They're doing their things behind closed doors. And so the last thing you want this to be is to become a distraction for them.
That's true. No, I haven't really gotten a chance to bash on you a little bit about your Michigan boys. I had it picked in my bracket to be in the finals. And ever since then, there's been a lot of talk about the University of Michigan's basketball team, namely with the man Mitch McGary. After you guys have already you've had Stauskas commit to go to the NBA, and you've had Glenn Robinson also commit to go to the NBA. Mitch McGary is now committing to go to the NBA. And for those who may not be aware, tell us a little bit about what's all been going on in Michigan and why a failed drug test is ultimately forcing this guy to go to the league.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at Michigan's starting lineup from the 2013 national championship game, Tim Hardaway, Trey Burke, they're both on NBA teams, and three other freshmen then, Nick Stauskas, Glenn Robinson III, and Mitch McGary, all just declared for this draft. Now, Nick and Glenn, they declared in a joint press conference about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. And earlier this week, it was announced that Mitch McGary would declare too. Under different circumstances. It was found out that during the tournament, before the first Sweet 16 game, he suited up and he was randomly selected for a drug test. He failed due to marijuana. And as a result, the NCAA punishment for that is a year-long suspension. Just to put that in perspective, if a student at the University of Michigan is caught with marijuana, it's a $25 suspension. So just to put that in a little bit perspective, so it essentially forced him out There's a lot of different things being said about this. The punishment's too harsh. But, McGary, he knew the rules, and he came out, and he could have declared without saying anything because it didn't have to be public knowledge. So credit him for that. But it's obviously a huge mistake, and if it hadn't happened, potentially you're looking at him coming back for another year.
Well, he was projected his first year to be possibly, if he went after the 5-game spurt his freshman year, he would have been a lottery pick. And now you're seeing projections, on like NBA Express and all these other draft organization sites that are saying he may not even be a first-round pick. He'll probably actually be a middle second-round pick. I mean, was there any way you could have seen him staying just to try to see, well, maybe by the time he's older, he'll be able to go into the league and get a better draft position?
Definitely. Well, I think even at the beginning of this year, you could see that maybe he regretted his decision as soon as, he came out with the injured back, because there was even some projections having him go, top 5, top 10 after the tournament he put on last year. He played well during the year, but when the lights were on, he averaged nearly 15 points during March. So people had him slotted pretty high. I think he definitely could have potentially considered coming back, given that he didn't get to play a lot this season, to kind of build his stock back up, play one more year, and then declare for the draft after his junior season. But given that he would be suspended for a year, it really put him in a situation where he was forced to declare.
So looking at those guys that have already declared for the draft, Glenn Robinson III, Nick Stauskas, and obviously Mitch McGary, which one of those three do you think will have the biggest impact in the NBA?
I think Glenn Robinson will. I think Stauskas will go earlier in the draft. He had a much better year. I just think out of those three guys, Glenn Robinson has the highest ceiling. He is just a freak athlete, and definitely the most athletic of those three. One of the more athletic players, I think, that played in college basketball this last season. I think the NBA is good for him. And one thing he said about his decision to go is he thought everything in terms of his level of increasing his ability, he can learn that at the NBA level, that he really didn't see a purpose to come back to Michigan where he can get better at the NBA level. And I think he's going to do that. I think Stauskas is going to be great too. I think, he's just such a sharp shooter. He has the ability to go to the lane. I don't think he's going to be as dominant doing that at the NBA level, but I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And, McGary, I think he's going to be the wild card. We're still not sure how healthy he is given his back injury, so we'll definitely have to wait on that. But he's a high-energy player. He can run the court. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a standout big man in the NBA, but I think he could have a good career.
Who else are you looking at from this draft class? It's obviously very, very rich in freshmen this year, but who else are you looking at that you think could be like a really impact player in the NBA next season?
Yeah, definitely. Just sticking in the Big Ten, Gary Harris is a fun guy to watch from Michigan State. He has all the tools that you look at for somebody to excel in the NBA. He's quick. He can get to the hoop. He can shoot. Like Glenn Robinson, just a really good athlete. He'll be a fun guy to watch. What do you think about your boys from KU, Ben?
Oh, the boys from KU right now. Looking at the guys coming out right now, I think we can assume that if the Milwaukee Bucks, the Lakers, I'm trying to think, the 76ers even, if they're one of the top 3 picks, I think we can assume that maybe a KU guy is going to be taken first overall. I think if it's the Lakers, they're going to be looking at a guy like Joel Embiid. They're going to want to pair Kobe with another big man. I think that's a great opportunity for them, especially if they amnesty Pau Gasol. They can be able to, reach out and say, hey, maybe Melo, do you want to come here, have a star big man who's a young guy? And, they could even do the flip of that, and I think that's what the Bucks would do. I think then they would take a guy like Andrew Wiggins. But I think it's, for the KU guys, it looks great. You have, by all means, both of them should be a top 5 pick in the draft. I think, you're looking at Julius Randle being a guy who will be in the top 5, Dante Exum, and then obviously Parker out of Duke. Those will be guys who will all be considered in the top 5, and then from there it's just going to be what team falls in what order. But I think as NBA potential goes, Joel Embiid is going to be a guy who develops over time, and I think Wiggins will be a guy who can come in and maybe score 12 points just right out of college, but is going to have to be refined as well. I think that's the difference between guys that you see at Michigan and guys you see at Kansas, for instance, or even Kentucky. I feel like you guys do a better job of refining players, and you see these guys who can come in and make a better impact immediately. Even Tim Hardaway, who wasn't an immediate pick in the draft, he came in this year for the Knicks, and albeit it was the Knicks, and he was immediately scoring. and he was immediately a guy who could throw in the shooting guard position. I think these particular Kansas guys have a lot more potential than guys in the past, you know, the Collisons of the world, even Kirk Heinrich, for instance. But I think that there's going to be a high ceiling, but it's not going to be as immediate of a result that we'll see with some of the other guys drafted, and as such as Adrian Payne, who I'm super high on. I think Adrian Payne is going to come in and immediately be a Robert Horry-esque type, a guy who can shoot from the outside and just be a solid role player. So,
Absolutely.
So, all right, going into the NBA right now, we're in playoff time. We saw that the Wizards have now knocked out the Bulls from the playoffs, and that the Heat have also knocked out the Bobcats from the playoffs. Who are some of the teams that you're watching right now in the playoffs, particularly?
You know, I like Atlanta a lot. They're a fun team to watch. You know, not a team that's always been there. And plus, one of the buddies I live with, he's from Atlanta, so he's got me hot on them. And having faced with my Nuggets from back home, the Warriors last year, I mean, Steph Curry, he just keeps you in any game, his ability to shoot. He's just fun to watch. I can't stand him personally after what they did to my Nuggets. But he's a guy that comes out on any given day, and I mean, he can't miss. He's a lot of fun to watch. And I think, given, you know, where the league's been at the last couple of years with some different teams, I think this is shaping up to be some of the more exciting playoffs that we've seen in a couple of years.
What do you think's up with the Thunder right now? They had that heartbreaking loss last night. The Serge Ibaka putback didn't count. What's wrong with Oklahoma City right now? Is Tony Allen really making that much of a difference by being 6'4" and guarding Kevin Durant?
You know, I think they're a team that's going to come around. That was an interesting game watching yesterday in terms of the timeout when Crawford, the referee, when he iced him at the line. I'd never seen that before.
It was an interesting explanation they were talking about it today. Apparently, they said because the score wasn't right up on the board, they didn't want to confuse people, and it just was, yeah, like you were saying, it ultimately gave a guy who runs off high emotion and is a great free throw shooter. I believe he's above, you know, he's in the 85 to 90% free throw shooting, who just flat out missed a free throw that would have been so clutch for his team. And so, I mean, terrible to see that, and they're down 3-2 in the series now to Memphis. But I think looking right now, it's hard to bet against the Heat right now, and I'm sure you kind of feel that way. But they're rolling right now, and I think the Wizards from the East as well are another team that'll be interesting to watch with the John Wall Bradley Beal combination. It's
always hard to bet against the Heat, but it's always more exciting to bet against the Heat because I'm sick and tired of them winning. But they've got a LeBron kid over there, and I've heard he's pretty good and continues to be. So until he's done. If I was a betting man, I'd probably throw some money down on them.
It's scary. Now, I've got to ask you, for those who don't know, Simon and I worked together out at Universal Sports Network last summer, and I've actually been a fan of the Nuggets for quite a few years. Are the Nuggets going to step it up next year?
You know, I think since the coaching change, I like Shaw. I was a big fan of George Karl. It's just a lot of new personnel, though, and I think the Nuggets are going to be a pretty mediocre team, middle of the pack. Maybe they'll catch a 6, 7, 8 seed in the next couple of years. I don't think they're going to compete like they used to a couple of years before with, you know, when they were competing for the top of the Western Conference. I think it'll be a little bit of a rebuilding phase for them.
You're breaking me here, Simon. You're breaking me here. I don't want to hear that. I want to know my boy Ty Lawson's doing well. I want to know Ty Lawson's going to go out there and hopefully take him back into the playoffs, even if it is only like a 7 seed in the West.
We still got a team playing at the Pepsi Center, though. The Avs are back in the playoffs, so that's exciting for Colorado fans.
Hockey. I know nothing about hockey. It's quite unfortunate.
I'm jumping on the bandwagon slowly, but I think I used to be a big fan before the first strike, but I've been watching the playoff hockey. I think there's nothing more exciting. I take it over basketball.
What do you think about Phelps coming back and going to be swimming again?
We're touching everything. I love it. I love it. Phelps, I think, is one of the most exciting. The most exciting Olympians, most exciting athletes. I love everything about him. He makes swimming so much more fun to watch. And if he were to come back in the 2016 Olympics with having him in the men's side of things and having Missy Franklin, I think that'd be a clean sweep for the U.S. In Lochte, too. That would be too much fun to watch.
How are you and Missy doing, by the way?
Missy, a fellow Coloradan. You know, we're still talking. We're day to day. Haven't talked to her in a little while. On the West Coast, the time difference is messing us up, but I'll let her know you said hi.
All right, great. I'm glad to hear that Missy's doing well. I know she misses you a lot. I've been reading all the posts about it. Just missing her favorite sports writer from out there at the University of Michigan.
Absolutely.
Well, Simon, I can't thank you enough for coming on with us today. It's always great to have you here, and hopefully we'll get you back on next semester when we're back.
All right, thanks. Congrats on good shows, and enjoy your last show next week.
Thanks so much, Simon.
All right, take it easy.
That's all we have here for today. We're going to get back with you next week with our final show. Make sure you follow us at 3 in the Key. Make sure you tweet at us as well, and we'll try to get back to you on that account. As for now, I'm Ben Allen. He's Simon Kaufman, and this has been 3 in the Key. Have a great day, guys.